Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, will the Texans add another corner, either in free agency or possibly via a trade? I'll break it all down on today's show. Texans link to a couple guys out there that play the cornerback spot. And I know what you're saying, Jeremy. The Texans' first pick in the draft this year was a cornerback in Kamari Lassiter, and you're correct, but I'm not sure whether the Texans are going to play him in the nickel or play him as the outside corner opposite of Derek Stingley. Right now, this is how I would have the Texans cornerback depth chart shaking out, with Derek Stingley at the CB1, Jeff Okudah as your cornerback 2, and then Kamari Lassiter as your third corner and nickel cornerback. Now, Jeff Okudah has kind of split a lot of Texans fans on whether or not they believe that he can be an outside corner and help this team, but I'm really not sure if the Texans are going to be rolling in with Okudah. I know DeMeco Ryans said, he was a top 10 pick for a reason. He still has a lot of talent, and we want to get that untapped potential out of him, which, yes, that might be the case, but Texans fans, I know they want a lot of corners out there. There's still a lot of talent to be signed or traded for at the cornerback position. So today I'm going to be breaking down, some of those options that the Texans could have. But before we get into those options, I want to hear from you folks at home. What is your confidence level in this Texans cornerback room? I mean, honestly, if this was the cornerback room right now, and we were playing a game this Sunday, what would be your confidence level? Scale it 1 to 10 for me in the comment section. 1, 0 confidence. You think they're the worst cornerback room in the NFL. 10, they might be the best in the NFL. You are 100% confident. You are all in on this Texans cornerback room. Let me know down in the comment section. It's going to be the pinned comment on today's video. The very first one, I'm really interested to see on what you have to say. So first, let's talk about Marshon Lattimore. Bleacher Report recently released an article about Marshon Lattimore possibly being traded to the Texans. They had 5 trades to go down before the preseason, and one of them involved the Texans and Marshon Lattimore. I know a lot of you are saying, why would the Saints trade Marshon Lattimore? He's a really good cornerback, born and bred through this Saints system. They, drafted him. He's been there the entire time. Why would they trade him? Well, this is what Bleacher Report had to say. They said, the New Orleans Saints are projected to be a league-high $73.7 million over the 2025 cap. If they want to get ahead on finding some much-needed relief, they have the option of trading Marshon Lattimore this offseason. Trading away Lattimore is a far more realistic option for the Saints now that the club has some depth at cornerback. The club recently added a top-flight prospect in Kool-Aid McKinstry on day 2 of the 2024 NFL Draft, jumping the Texans right there, right before they were about to select a player who could be ready to start as early as this upcoming season. And, I mean, they're not wrong in that one of the deepest rooms for the Saints is their cornerback depth chart. They have Paulson Adebo, who's been a pretty good player for them. They drafted Alontae Taylor last year out of Tennessee, who played well for them as well. And then they drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry in the second round this year, who a lot of people believe is ready to start right now in the NFL. And with the Texans having the Texans having a need at corner, the Saints having a surplus at corner, it means the Texans are a logical fit for this trade for Marshon Lattimore. It makes sense for both sides to get a deal done because the Saints, they don't necessarily need him. They could get some cap relief going into next year, even though the Saints are, magicians in how they're able to manipulate and flex that cap that they have. But the Texans, they have that cap room. And this is what Bleacher Report said about the Texans possibly trading for Lattimore. If Lattimore is made available, expect the Houston Texans to come calling. The Texans have spent the offseason loading up on veterans to make a deep run following last year's surprise trip to the divisional round. After unearthing a franchise quarterback in C.J. Stroud, Houston's brass is clearly trying to maximize the team's Super Bowl chances by bringing in pricey pieces the team can only afford while Stroud is locked up into a cheap rookie-scale contract. Lattimore makes for an ideal starter across from Derek Stingley Jr., giving Houston one of the best cornerback tandems in football, while second-round rookie Kamari Lassiter gets brought up to speed. And this is the trade idea that Bleacher Report threw out there. The Texans get Marshon Lattimore. The Saints receive a 2025 third-round pick. I'll give my opinion on it in just a second, but for you folks at home, this is Chat Sports. It's not Jeremy Sports. I want to hear from you First, let me know, would you do this trade? Simply give me a yes, give me a no down in the comment section. Maybe give me the reasons why you would say yes, why you would say no. Let me know down in the comment section, would you do this trade? Might surprise you because the whole time I've been saying, it's a logical fit. The Texans, they need cornerback help. The Saints, they have a surplus. But for this deal, the one that Bleacher Report put out there, if I'm the Houston front office, I'm saying no to this deal. I would not do this trade because, you're helping the Saints out. They have a surplus at cornerback. They need cap relief going into next year. Marshon Lattimore isn't a plus, trade asset for the Saints right now. The teams around the league, they're not stupid. They know where the Saints are at in terms of the cap and where they're at in terms of their cornerback depth. So the Texans making this trade for a third-round pick, which they based it off the Jalen Ramsey trade going from the Rams to the Dolphins. One, I think Jalen Ramsey is better than Marshon Lattimore. And two, I just think it's different situations with the Texans and the Dolphins, and I don't think the Texans need to give up a third-round pick for Marshon Lattimore. If we look at his stats over the last 4 seasons, he's been decent, but the past 2 years, he's played 17 games combined. I'm not trading a third-round pick for a guy who might or might not play for this team, no matter how good he is. So if I'm the Houston Texans, yes, Marshon Lattimore, he's had some success in the NFL. He's been a good cornerback in the National Football League. But I am not trading a third-round pick for Marshon Lattimore. At most, I'm going to be trading a fifth. Maybe we can talk somewhere in the middle for a fourth-round pick. But a third-round pick for Marshon Lattimore, I'm saying no deal for the Houston Texans. I know they're making that push for a Super Bowl run. And adding a guy like Lattimore would be a step in the right direction, but also you have to look at the grand scheme, the bigger picture of everything. You're getting a corner in Marshon Lattimore. Why would you give up a third-round pick in next year's draft where you've already moved around picks? You traded for a second-round pick in next year's draft, and then you flipped that for Stephon Diggs. You've already kind of made some maneuvers. I'm not trading a third-round pick for Marshon Lattimore, especially when there's some talented names out there that I can just pay possibly better contracts than Marshon Lattimore and not have to give up any picks in next year's draft. And coming up after this ad break, I'm going to tell you who those other corners are. If you've watched the show, you have most definitely heard these names, but I just wanted to kind of reiterate some of the guys that the Texans could get without having to trade like doing so with Marshon Lattimore. But before we get into that, got to show you these dope-ass Texans hats. The new logo, I was getting clowned in the office for this. Now, looking at the hat, this hat F's. This hat F's right now, and you can get it right now at chatsports.com/Texans hats. They have all the new Texans hats, all the new logos, all the new colorways available for you right now with our friends over at Fanatics. When you go to chatsports.com/Texans hats, that's how they know that we sent you. I'm going to put that in the comment section and description of today's video. Go check them out today. Just maybe do a little window shopping. There's a couple that are on really good deals and almost sold out as well. Like this next hat right here, I know for a fact it's 40% off right whenever I checked. Last time I checked, it was 40% off, and there were only a few available. So go check them out today. Maybe do a little window shopping, but make sure you use our link, chatsports.com/Texans hats. Now, talking about the cornerback position, there's 3 guys that are still out there that I would rather, just go ahead and sign than trade for Marshon Lattimore and give up a third or fourth round pick. One, Steven Nelson. I'd rather just re-sign Steven Nelson. I know he's kind of split a lot of Texans fans. Some people think he's ass. Some people think he's pretty good. I think he's decent, especially if you get him on a reasonable contract. He knows the defense. He knows DeMeco Ryans. He knows the system. And last year, besides getting burned by Amari Cooper and some guys later on in the season, he was a serviceable cornerback too. People forget Steven Nelson was not all that bad last season. I wouldn't mind maybe, re-signing Steven Nelson to a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal at a decent contract for him. Same with Stephon Gilmore. He's another guy out there still in free agency who you can get and you don't have to trade anything for. Maybe a little bit more expensive, maybe the most expensive out of these 3 guys that I'm going to talk about today. But last year for the Cowboys, he was the de facto CB1. Trayvon Diggs went down early on in the year, and Stephon Gilmore held it down for the Cowboys and was their cornerback 1 and played pretty admirably. We look at his coverage stats from last year, 83.3 quarterback rating when targeted, 13 PBUs to 2 interceptions on a 54.9 completion percentage when targeted. Not bad at all. Not too shabby by Stephon Gilmore. And the third guy is Xavier Howard, somebody who we've talked a lot about on this show. Born and raised in Houston, has said he wants to come back home, said he is very interested in playing for the Houston Texans, which I wouldn't mind having him either. And it's so funny because a lot of people freaked out about the Kamari Lassiter pick, and then at the same time, they're like, oh, I want Xavier Howard. He's awesome. Xavier Howard, kind of similar to Kamari Lassiter. They both ran in the 4.5s in their pre-draft process, both really physical, good outside corners. So if you're like, oh, I want Xavier Howard, and I'm not sure about Kamari Lassiter, I hate to break it to you. They're very similar. But I would like Xavier Howard also just to kind of teach Kamari Lassiter. They are very similar corners. So if you get a guy like Xavier Howard, he can maybe man the outside while Kamari Lassiter is on the inside and kind of groom him into that position for the next couple of years to come. So you have Lassiter on the outside with Derek Stingley. These are just three guys that I would rather sign than trade for Marshon Lattimore at this point, unless you get him for like a 5th or a 6th round pick. That's all I have for you on today's show. But if you want to join the most informative, interactive Texans channel on YouTube that's 100% free, well, I have a great deal for you. 365 days out of the year, this channel is free. All you got to do, go down and hit that sub button or go to youtube.com/TexansTV. If you already subbed, thank you for subbing to the channel. I appreciate everybody who spends time out of their day to join the channel, watch the channel, support. I appreciate you. But if you are already subbed, go ahead and send this to a friend. Send this to a family member. Say, hey, we got a brand new Texans channel on YouTube, the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube. Go check them out. Go support. Appreciate everybody who's done that so far, but let's keep this train rolling to 15,000 subscribers.